Hi kids, I'm Belinda, and I hardly ever shut up. You'll never know when I might pop up and say something. Okay. Let's get into it.
Welcome. Today, we're diving into the outback to meet Hoppy the hopeless kangaroo. Now don't let that name fool you. There's more to Hoppy than meets the eye. Picture this. A young kangaroo living in the heart of the Australian outback, surrounded by his boisterous siblings. But Hoppy, well, he's a bit different. From the moment he could hop, things just didn't seem to go his way. His leaps? More like light bounces, his boxing skills. Let's just say he was more likely to trip over his own tail. But remember, every story has its twists and turns. And our Hoppy here, he's no ordinary kangaroo. So buckle up and get ready to hop into an adventure that's going to change everything we know about Hoppy. Because sometimes the most unexpected heroes come from the most unlikely of places. In the heart of the outback, Hoppy's life was a bit of a disaster. Our kangaroo friend was living in an environment where hopping high and boxing strong were the norms. But sadly for Hoppy, these norms were a bit of a challenge. Our dear Hoppy was surrounded by his lively Joey siblings. Their days were filled with laughter, bounding leaps and playful boxing matches. But for Hoppy, these everyday kangaroo activities were a struggle, more like a series of unfortunate events. Imagine a kangaroo who couldn't hop high. That was Hoppy. His leaps were more like tiny hops, hardly getting his feet off the ground. His siblings could clear the tallest grass with a single bounce, but not Hoppy. He would trip over the smallest pebble or tumble into a tuft of grass. His attempts at hopping were, well, not so Hoppy. And then there was boxing. For kangaroos, boxing is a way of play, a way of establishing who's the boss. Hoppy's siblings were naturals, their little paws landing punches left and right. But Hoppy, oh poor Hoppy, he would often end up boxing himself, his uncoordinated paws landing on his own nose more often than not. It wasn't just the physical aspects that were tough for Hoppy. The constant failures, the giggles of his siblings, and the teasing from the other Joeys, it all weighed heavily on his little kangaroo heart. He started to feel like maybe he just wasn't cut out to be a kangaroo. The name Hoppy the Hopeless seemed more fitting with each passing day. Every night Hoppy would curl up in a corner of his family's pouch, his big, droopy ears drooping a little lower, his sad eyes reflecting the moonlight. He felt like he didn't belong, like he wasn't good enough. He felt hopeless, just like his name. One day Hoppy stumbles upon a group of emus arguing over a clump of spinifex grass. Now this wasn't your ordinary squabble, folks. This was a full-blown feathery feud over who had the rights to this particularly prickly patch. Emu 1, a tall, proud bird, was adamant that he had spotted the grass first. "I saw it first! It's mine!" he squawked, his voice echoing across the outback. Emu 2, equally as tall but perhaps a bit more ruffled around the edges, disagreed vehemently. "No way! It's clearly in my territory," he retorted, his feathers rustling in indignation. Caught in the middle of this emu argument was our dear friend Hoppy, watching this spectacle with wide-eyed wonder. He wasn't one for confrontation, but he couldn't bear to see his fellow outback inhabitants at odds over something as simple as grass. In his soft-spoken, somewhat shy manner, Hoppy decided to intervene. Excuse me, but maybe we can share?" he suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. The emus, taken aback by this unusual interruption, turned to look at him. They knew Hoppy, of course. Everyone in the outback knew Hoppy. He was the kangaroo who couldn't quite hop right, the one who always seemed to be a few steps behind. The idea of him solving their dispute was laughable to them. The emus laughed at Hoppy's suggestion. "Share with you?" They scoffed, their laughter ringing out across the outback. But Hoppy, ever the optimist, wasn't deterred by their mockery. He believed in his ability to find a solution, even if no one else did. And then, just as the emus were about to return to their squabble, Hoppy had an idea. A brilliant, unique, not-so-Hoppy idea that would change everything. With a sniff and a wiggle, Hoppy started to dig a tunnel right underneath the prickly patch. Now, our hero wasn't known for his jumping prowess or boxing finesse, but it turns out he had quite the knack for digging. Who knew a kangaroo could burrow like a bunny? As the dust flew and the dirt piled up, Hoppy's short hops and wiggly nose proved to be quite the asset. The emus watched, their beady eyes wide with surprise as Hoppy disappeared into the earth. Moments later, with a triumphant leap, Hoppy emerged from the other side of the prickly patch, a mouthful of delicious grass clutched between his teeth. The emus were gobsmacked. Not only had Hoppy found a way to reach the grass without getting pricked, but he'd also uncovered a whole new source of food underneath the surface. Their argument forgotten, the emus looked at Hoppy with newfound respect. Who would have thought that the clumsy kangaroo they'd laughed at could solve their problem so ingeniously? And so, Hoppy, our not-so-hoppy kangaroo, became the talk of the outback. His creative thinking and perseverance had turned a prickly problem into a plentiful feast, earning him the admiration of the emus and the gratitude of his fellow kangaroos. His name might have been Hoppy the Hopeless, but that day he proved that he was anything but hopeless. In fact, his unique approach to problem-solving made him a true outback hero. Hoppy's story goes to show that sometimes it's not about fitting in or excelling at what others do well. It's about finding your own unique strengths and using them to make a difference. So, while Hoppy might not have been the best jumper or the strongest boxer, he had a heart full of courage and a head full of clever ideas. And that's the beauty of our not-so-hoppy kangaroo. He didn't let his shortcomings define him. Instead, he found his own way to shine, and in doing so he taught us all a valuable lesson about the power of creativity and resilience. Hoppy, the not-so-hoppy kangaroo, turned out to be the true outback hero. See? What Hoppy lacked in traditional kangaroo skills, he made up for in creativity and problem-solving. His journey was not an easy one. From being laughed at to feeling less than his siblings, Hoppy had his fair share of tough times, but he didn't let that put a damper on his spirit. Instead, he found a way to use his unique abilities to make a difference, not just for himself, but for the whole outback community. This tale of Hoppy, our not-so-hoppy hero, teaches us a valuable lesson. It shows us the beauty of thinking differently and the power of perseverance. It reminds us that it's okay to not excel in everything we try, as long as we give it our all and never stop trying. So, remember, next time you feel like you're not quite measuring up, think of Hoppy's story. You might just surprise yourself.
Thank you for watching. It would be awesome if you would take the time to comment, like, and subscribe. Ring the bell so that we can notify you of our new videos. Have a great day. Bye-bye.